Have you ever been told you're not visionary enough? That your ideas are too practical or grounded? Well, imagine hearing those words right before being handed a termination notice. That's exactly what happened to me 3 years ago at Horizon Tech, one of the fastest growing tech companies in Boston. They said I lacked vision and was too focused on present problems rather than future innovations. I cleaned out my desk that same day, humiliated and questioning my entire career. But here's the twist. Last month, I received a call from the same CEO who fired me, practically begging for my help. Why? Because sometimes seeing the road ahead clearly means understanding where you're standing right now. Stay with me to hear how I went from being labeled as short-sighted to becoming the visionary they desperately needed. Welcome to Dismissal Diaries, where we share real stories of workplace injustice, career comebacks, and professional redemption. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and join our community of survivors and thrivers who turned their professional setbacks into spectacular comebacks. I still remember the cold December morning when I was called into Marcus Reed's office, the CEO of Horizon Tech. The company had been my home for 5 years. I'd started as a product manager and worked my way up to director of operations. I loved that place, the sleek glass building overlooking the Charles River, the bustling energy of our open-plan office, even the slightly pretentious coffee bar where executives would gather to discuss their next big ideas. But that morning, something felt different. The usual friendly nods from colleagues were replaced with averted gazes. The executive assistant who usually greeted me warmly just stared at her computer screen as I walked by. I knew something was wrong. Marcus was sitting behind his massive mahogany desk, flanked by Vanessa from HR. Never a good sign. "John, thank you for coming in," Marcus began, not even looking up from his tablet. "We've been evaluating the leadership team's alignment with our 5-year vision, and I'm afraid we've reached a difficult decision." My stomach dropped. 5 years of dedication, of 70-hour weeks, of missed birthdays and anniversaries, all about to be dismissed in a carefully scripted conversation. "Your approach has been consistently reliable, John, but Horizon needs visionaries right now. We're pivoting toward more disruptive innovation, and frankly, your constant focus on operational stability and risk assessment is holding us back." I remember my response vividly. "Are you firing me because I'm making sure our current products actually work before we launch 10 new ones?" Marcus sighed, that condescending sigh that successful tech CEOs seem to perfect. "This is exactly what I mean. You're so focused on the present that you can't see the future. We need leaders who can envision where technology is going, not just manage where it is." Within an hour, I was escorted out of the building with a cardboard box containing 5 years of my professional life. My team wasn't even allowed to say goodbye. The severance package was generous, 6 months' salary, but the blow to my confidence was devastating. That night, I sat in my apartment overlooking the city, nursing a glass of whiskey, replaying every meeting, every decision, every conversation. Had I really been that blind? Was I truly incapable of vision? Or was I just the only person in the executive team who cared about whether our products actually functioned properly? The first few weeks after being fired were a blur. I oscillated between anger, self-doubt, and occasional moments of relief. Truth be told, Horizon's culture had become increasingly toxic over the previous year. Marcus had brought in a new group of executives, all from his previous company, and they'd formed an echo chamber of grandiose ideas with little concern for execution. I'd watch in meetings as they'd enthusiastically approve new product lines without any regard for resource constraints or technical feasibility. When I'd raise concerns, I'd be labeled as resistant to change or stuck in old paradigms. But I wasn't against innovation. I just believed that innovation needed to be built on a foundation of operational excellence. One particular project haunted me: Project Nebula. It was supposed to be Horizon's entry into the artificial intelligence space. Marcus had become obsessed with competing against industry giants, despite our company having minimal AI expertise. I had suggested we start with a smaller, more achievable AI integration into our existing products before attempting to build a standalone AI platform from scratch. That's exactly the kind of small thinking that's holding us back, Marcus had declared in front of the entire executive team. While you're worried about taking baby steps, our competitors are taking giant leaps. So they poured $30 million into Project Nebula. I was sidelined from the initiative entirely. 3 months after my firing, I was still struggling to find my footing. I'd had several interviews, but my heart wasn't in it. The experience at Horizon had left me questioning my value in the tech industry. Was I truly too cautious for the fast-paced world of innovation? Then came the news. Horizon's stock had plummeted 28% in a single day. Project Nebula, their much-hyped AI platform, had launched with catastrophic results. The system was riddled with critical security flaws. The user interface was practically unusable, and worse, it simply didn't deliver on any of its promised functionality. Tech blogs were having a field day. Horizon's Nebula, a black hole for user data, read one particularly scathing headline. Another called it the Fire Festival of AI launches. I didn't feel the vindication I expected. These were still my former colleagues, many of whom I respected deeply, facing public humiliation. And somewhere in that beautiful glass building overlooking the Charles River, there were engineers and product managers who had probably raised the same concerns I had, only to be similarly dismissed. Life moved on. I eventually found a position at a smaller, less flashy company called Terraform Solutions. They created environmental monitoring systems, not as glamorous as Horizon's consumer tech, but meaningful work with a team that valued both innovation and execution. My role as Chief Operations Officer allowed me to implement many of the processes and approaches that Horizon had rejected. We developed a project evaluation framework that balanced visionary thinking with practical execution. We celebrated team members who identified potential problems early rather than sidelining them as naysayers. Within a year, Terraform's project success rate had improved from 60% to 92%. Our client retention reached an all-time high. We weren't making headlines or attracting venture capital with grandiose promises, but we were building sustainable technology that actually worked. Then, 18 months after my unceremonious departure from Horizon, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "John, it's Elaine Chen." Elaine had been Horizon's chief financial officer, one of the few executives who had occasionally backed me up in meetings. "Elaine, this is unexpected." Her voice sounded tired. "I'll cut to the chase. Things are not good here, John. After the Nebula disaster, we've had 2 more failed product launches. Our best talent is leaving. Marcus is no longer with the company." I nearly dropped my phone. Marcus is gone. The board asked for his resignation 3 weeks ago. They've appointed me as interim CEO while they search for a permanent replacement. She paused. "But that's not why I'm calling. We need your help, John." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "You're kidding, right? Horizon fired me for lacking vision. Now you want my help?" "I know how it sounds," she said quietly. "But we're desperate. The company is hemorrhaging money and talent. The board is considering selling off our core divisions just to stay afloat. We need someone who understands our operations, who can help us stabilize before everything collapses. I'm sorry, Elaine, but I have a job now. A good one, with people who actually value my input." "I understand, but would you at least consider coming in as a consultant, just to help us assess the situation? The company you helped build is on the verge of disappearing, John. Whatever happened with Marcus? Many of us never agreed with your dismissal." I told her I'd think about it, but I already knew my answer. Despite everything, I still cared about Horizon. Or at least, I cared about the vision of what it could have been. The following Monday, I walked back through those familiar glass doors. The energy was different now, the bustling optimism replaced with a palpable tension. Familiar faces looked up as I passed, some breaking into surprised smiles, others quickly looking away in what might have been shame. Elaine had assembled what remained of the executive team in the main conference room. As I entered, the conversation immediately hushed. "Thank you for coming, John," Elaine said, gesturing to an empty chair beside her. Ironically, the same chair I used to occupy in these meetings. "I'm here to listen," I said, remaining standing. "I haven't agreed to anything yet." Elaine nodded and turned to the room. "I've asked John to consider helping us navigate our current challenges. Before he decides, I think we owe him complete transparency about our situation." What followed was a sobering assessment of Horizon's state. After Project Nebula's failure, 2 subsequent initiatives had similarly flopped. The company had burned through its cash reserves, chasing disruptive innovations, without ensuring they had solid foundations. Customer trust was at an all-time low. Their best engineers and designers had been poached by competitors. As the discussion continued, I noticed something interesting. Every single problem they described, every crisis they were facing, stemmed from exactly the issues I had been raising before my dismissal. They had prioritized flashy innovations over operational stability. They had ignored technical debt until it became crippling. They had dismissed customer feedback as resistance to change. When they finished, the room fell silent, all eyes on me. "Before I decide," I said carefully, "I need to understand something. You're facing these problems because you, as an organization, consistently valued visionary thinking over practical execution. You literally fired me for prioritizing the very things that might have prevented this situation. So what's changed? Why would my input be valued now when it was dismissed before?" Elaine looked around the room, then back at me. "Because we were wrong, John. Completely and catastrophically wrong. We confused ambition with vision and hype with innovation. Real vision isn't just about seeing a future. It's about understanding how to get there." No! A week later, I returned to Horizon, not as an employee, but as a consultant with a 6-month contract and considerable authority to implement changes. My agreement with the board was clear. I would help stabilize Horizon's operations and set them on a sustainable path, but I would not be returning permanently. My loyalty now was to Terraform, who had generously allowed me to reduce my hours to accommodate this consulting work. The challenges were immense. Horizon had accumulated massive technical debt across all its products. The development teams were fragmented and demoralized. The company's once stellar reputation had been severely damaged. My first action was to gather the entire company, now significantly smaller after layoffs, for an honest conversation. No corporate speak, no motivational platitudes. Just truth. Horizon lost its way, I told them, because it stopped listening to its customers, to its employees, and to reality. We're going to start listening again. Every concern will be heard, every risk will be acknowledged, and every decision will be made with both our current reality and our future goals in mind. The strategy we developed was straightforward. First, stop the bleeding. We paused all new development to focus on fixing critical issues in our existing products. Second, rebuild trust, both internally and with customers. We implemented a transparent communication system where problems were discussed openly rather than hidden. Third, redefine innovation at Horizon to mean meaningful advancement, not just novelty. The most revealing moment came when we conducted a comprehensive review of past failed projects. A pattern quickly emerged. In almost every case, team members had identified the fatal flaws early, but their concerns had been suppressed or ignored because they didn't align with the executive vision. "This stops now," I announced. "The most visionary thing we can do is create an environment where truth can be spoken without fear." We instituted a new practice called reality checks. Dedicated sessions where teams could raise concerns about projects without fear of being labeled as non-visionary. These sessions became crucial to identifying potential issues before they became catastrophic failures. Slowly, painfully, Horizon began to stabilize. The bleeding stopped. Customer complaints decreased. Small wins accumulated into momentum. 4 months into my consulting engagement, we launched our first new feature since the crisis, a modest but valuable enhancement to our core product. Unlike previous launches, this one was thoroughly tested, conservatively scoped, and delivered exactly what it promised. Customer response was positive. Employee morale improved. At the 5-month mark, Elaine called me into her office, the same office where Marcus had fired me. "The board has been impressed with the turnaround," she said. "They've asked me to offer you the CEO position." I was momentarily speechless. The irony was almost too perfect, being offered the top job at the company that had dismissed me for lacking vision. "I'm flattered," I said finally. "But my answer is no. I'm happy at Terraform. What I would like to discuss, though, is transitioning my consulting role to something more sustainable for Horizon." Elaine looked disappointed but not surprised. "We thought you might say that. What do you have in mind?" What followed was a candid discussion about Horizon's future leadership. I suggested they needed someone who embodied both innovative thinking and operational discipline, not one at the expense of the other. "The person you're looking for," I told her, "is probably already in your organization. Someone who's been raising concerns while also offering solutions. Someone who understands both the vision and the path to achieving it." In my final month at Horizon, I helped them identify and elevate leaders who demonstrated this balanced approach. We created a new executive structure that emphasized collaboration between the visionaries and the executors, rather than valuing one over the other. My last day consulting at Horizon coincided exactly with the 3-year anniversary of my firing. As I prepared to leave, Elaine handed me an envelope. "This is from the board," she said. Inside was a formal letter of apology, acknowledging that my dismissal had been a mistake born of a flawed understanding of what true vision entails. Along with it was a check representing the difference between my consulting fee and what I would have earned had I remained at Horizon for those 3 years. "This doesn't make it right," Elaine said, "but they wanted you to know that they understand the error in judgment." I accepted the apology but returned the check. "Put it toward your employee development program instead," I suggested. "Invest in teaching your team what real vision looks like." As I walked out of Horizon's glass building for the last time, I felt no resentment, only a profound appreciation for the journey. Being fired had forced me to reevaluate my own definition of success. It had led me to Terraform, where I was truly valued, and it had taught me that sometimes the most visionary act is simply to see things as they truly are. Today, both companies are thriving in their own ways. Horizon has become more measured in its approach to innovation, building on solid foundations rather than chasing every shiny possibility. Terraform continues to grow steadily, making a real environmental impact with technology that works reliably. And me, I've become something of an unofficial consultant for companies looking to balance innovation with execution. I've even written a book called Grounded Vision: Bridging Dreams and Reality in Business, which has found an audience among technology leaders. The experience taught me that true vision isn't about ignoring present realities in favor of future possibilities. It's about seeing both clearly, understanding where you are, where you want to go, and most importantly, how to build a bridge between the two. Sometimes, the people labeled as lacking vision are actually the ones who see most clearly. They see the obstacles, the limitations, and the practical challenges that must be overcome to turn dreams into reality. That's not a weakness. It's a different kind of strength, one that complements and enhances visionary thinking. If there's a lesson in my story, it's this. In a world obsessed with disruptive innovation and radical thinking, don't underestimate the power of clear-eyed pragmatism. The most successful organizations don't choose between visionaries and pragmatists. They cultivate both, creating environments where dreams can be pursued without losing touch with reality. I was fired for lacking vision, only to be called back to provide the guidance they desperately needed. The irony isn't lost on me. But more important than the vindication is the lesson. True vision requires both seeing the stars and knowing how to build a ladder tall enough to reach them. If you've ever been undervalued, dismissed, or misjudged in your professional life, remember, sometimes what others perceive as your greatest weakness may actually be your most valuable strength. Your perspective matters, even when others can't see its worth yet. I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. Have you ever been criticized for something that later proved to be valuable? How did you handle it? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear right now. If you enjoyed this journey of professional redemption, don't forget to subscribe to Dismissal Diaries for more stories of workplace challenges transformed into triumph. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Remember, every setback can be the setup for an incredible comeback. Until next time, this is Dismissal Diaries, where your career story isn't over until you say it is.